Hi, I'm Taewei Wang. This lecture is to summarize the chapter 1 from the book System Analysis and Design in an Age of Options. The purpose of this lecture is not to explain or cover everything that author has covered in this particular chapter. Instead, I try to, as a professor, highlight the most important point or the most important learning objective that should be obtained from reading the chapter. So even though reading the entire chapter from the example the author provided to you, to the problem they try to identify and highlight, and to the framework and structure they try to deliver to you, will be probably the best learning process. But my role here, I would like to consider is to tell you, okay, after reading all these, what exactly I have learned from the chapter. And chapter 1, like many other textbooks, is always talking about the big picture. And the big picture I would like to say here is, as a MIS student, you should be expecting to learn one important thing. What kind of a technique and skill you can learn in this class to prepare for your IT professional career, and what exactly is this particular career is all about. And the keywords of this particular career is called the business analyst, or BA in the course outline slide that you see on the screen right now. In a software development environment, we usually have two important roles to play in the process of, you can call this a project management. Any software product or company software management project, you will have a person sort of like managing the entire continuous project that evolve in that particular organization. And traditionally, that particular position is called the system analyst. A system analyst works under CIO, Chief Information Officer, and try to regular and managing the team, try to make sure that all the software are purchased or designed or created based on the user's requirements. Typically, a system analyst has a very strong technical background with a strong programming experience, so he or she would know exactly how to write and build a software product. And over time, through his or her experience in organization using software, and he become and develop into this particular role, helping the company to shape and form their software. And of course, modern day software is a complicated business. Some of the software used in the companies are purchased from a third party company. Some of the software are managed by a consulting firm. Some of the software nowadays you see is managed by a public cloud organization. And some of those are developed in-house by a team of programmers or a person who are want to use the software and bring his or own personal software into the picture as well. So to manage this kind of complicated operation of how a organization use software become a big business, you require many roles and many positions. People perform different jobs to actually put things together. So you need to have programmer for sure. You need to have some sort of a user involvement and the people providing what they are using in the process. You also have this project manager, system analyst, control everything. And finally, the keywords here on the slide says business analyst is the person actually bridging between the technical person and the end user, because usually the end user will not be able to communicate with all these techies and all these software company. Even some of you and I have hard time to talk to this type of person. So the role of a business analyst, which is you are going to be trained into, will be the buffer between the technical person and the end user. And one of the entry-level job for business analysts is something what we call requirement gathering. So pretty much throughout the semester, even throughout this entire book, you will be encounter surrounding the job of how do we acquire requirement from user and manage the requirement and make sure the requirement is delivered to the technical person and they can implement some sort of a software improvement to meet the requirement. And this is the cycle, a process of coming back and forth, feedback from the user again, and you'll go back to improve even more. So it's an endless cycle, which means good news. If you get into the business of business analyst, your job never ends because user requirement always change, and there's always a role for you to deliver message from user to the developer. And one of the expression I like to give my student as a MIS learner is that on the job market, what kind of job can give you the highest salary? The answer is the dirty job. Why? Because usually the dirty job are either dirty or boring, and because people do not want to do it. But it is a required job. So when a job is required but nobody want to do it, the demand for that kind of person will be high. And one typical example will be a plumber. Plumber is doing the essential and dirty job. And not a lot of people like to become a plumber. So if you have a plumber skill, then you got high pay. And actually, the last time I checked from my neighbor is actually a plumber, a very experienced plumber. He told me that he can probably, in current economic condition, he can make about 120, 150 in the Midwest here as a plumber. So you know that. Why he got paid that high? Because he's doing the essential and dirty job. Now, in a way, in organization, the person responsible for technology is doing something very similar. Technology itself is a very dry. It seems like very, very flashy and people playing games and doing all these multimedia out there. But it is actually a very dry, very boring, in some ways very dirty task in organization. You have to handle a lot of this unreasonable user requests and the complaint from people. Pretty much like a doctor listen to patients complain about their pains and they cannot figure out why. Same thing here. An IT employee usually have this problem of I don't know where the problem is, and we try to solve the problem for the user, for the people in my organization. So it is a dirty job. And this is more complicated by the situation. Software product is much more complicated than what you can see in the previous technology, such as plumber. Then in plumbing industry, the technology is, even though there are a lot of things you need to know in terms of how to handle the pipe, how to handle all these tools, but it's much less complicated compared to software. We have so many software companies constantly deliver new product, and each one of these product is faulty and with problem. So we're dealing with a very messy, very dirty job. So going back to this position called business analyst, it is something what we call a human-driven process. Because regardless of how good a software can be, the ultimate judgment is coming from the people using the software. So the user experience, the user judgment, or the user evaluation is probably the most important thing. And this is the job that for business analysts to figure it out. And typically a business analyst require a teamwork skill to bring different people together, listen to people, doing a good documentation, managing the resource well, and manage the time very well. So make sure that the software or IT resource as a tool can help the organization to achieve exactly what the organization mission should be. And one of the most important and very difficult tasks for a business analyst to perform is because you are the bridge between a technical person and a end user, regular person like you and me. And your job is to know the language from both sides. And of course, from our everyday experience as a regular person, we speak the language of regular person. Even though that part is also involving some psychology, and you have to figure out when people are saying, how they're saying, and what exactly they are saying. But on the other hand, we're facing the difficulty of understanding the technology language. For example, programming language is one of those language. So this even poses a problem for the business analyst, the person doing the job. So what can we do to kind of become the bridge, even though we may not be 100% what do you call proficient in both worlds? So the answer is that for all the successful CEO, managers, and entrepreneur, you got to see the big picture, right? So what is the big picture of a business analyst then? You got to know the process of how things are done, because once you know the process, and you can manage it better, and you have to understand the complexity of the situation. So now the process, simply saying, using, even though without, it's not on the slide here, it's actually a problem-solving process. And in the position of a business analyst, we go through the process of analysis and design to achieve that particular goal. And your text will bring in a very famous cartoon to explain your job as a business analyst. So basically, your job is trying to understand the entire picture. In this case, will be a tree. And what you should be doing with this particular tree depends on who you are. And how are you going to be dealing with the software depends on who you are. Are you the business owner? Are you the end user? Are you the patient in the hospital? Or are you the student in the university? Each one of them looking at the software differently. And your job is to understand all these different perspectives and come up with a way of letting each other know what to expect. So the keyword here is big picture. So you're going to be delivering the big picture. And we are using this word picture already. And how do we deliver big picture then? And the big picture is delivered in actually two major category. One is you gotta have this something what we call approach or methodology. You need to follow some sort of a systematic step by step, or sometimes it's not step by step. And later we'll discuss several different approach. So approach or methodology is one. The others on the other side, how do you present big picture? Just look at the figure 1.10 here. The big picture is presented in a graphical model in the picture. So big picture is delivered in the picture. Now using the system or business analysis terminology, we call this a model. So you're going to be using a methodology, and you are going to be using model, using these two important tools to make sure that the communication process or the management process is performed correctly in the organization. So that's the two major things we are learning in this course: modeling, building graphical picture or model, and learning approach or methodology that associate with different type of model. Now, the most popular word in business analysis is called agile, or how do you pronounce it? Agile approach or agile methodology. And without saying too much about the detail of agile methodology, let's simply say that this is a very nimble, very flexible method of managing software. So we want to build a software that is very flexible, contrast to something very structured and very planned or designed well. And it's kind of like our day-to-day experience of using your cell phone. So look at your cell phone. How many apps have you downloaded? And you continue to download the app. And one of the biggest problems that the time when you have the desire to change your cell phone is what? Your cell phone has too many apps. You cannot manage anymore. So you go out, upgrade your cell phone, and get a more powerful and more space so you can put more app in there. And actually, why you have so many apps on the cell phone? Because the way you use cell phone is an agile approach of using cell phone. Because whenever we need to do something on your cell phone, you go look for a solution and you put that particular solution on your cell phone. That's called the app. And so that process is actually an evolving process. And over time, you'll find that you tend to use only 5 or 6 different apps every day on your cell phone, and that becomes the ultimate system you're developing for your personal use. And that process is pretty much explain the agile approach is all about. And as you can probably see, that process is very unorganized, and we just kind of like stumble into something and use it. So this is why when we are using the same concept and idea in organization, we have to be more careful, building some planning into this agile process. Hopefully, we can get the benefit from both sides: good planning and spontaneous reaction, and try to fit something between and that work well in the organization. And this balance is very important, and one of the most important problem in the IT technology world is that the things change too fast. Yesterday we were still talking about data warehouse, and today we're talking about Amazon cloud. So as an organization, you already spend like $10 million in data warehouse. Now people ask you to spend another $10 million in Amazon cloud. That doesn't seem to be reasonable. It will just disrupt your business plan altogether. So what you should be doing, you gotta find a way in between, moving from not spending $10 million, maybe two, and spend only another two in the cloud, and try to switch in between. But at the same time, you have to get your job done, right? So that's the challenge of every IT professional, every person engaged in system analysis and design. So a lot of things that even though when we are learning the topic, we focus on one method, one concept, one model at a time. But very likely you will see a lot of these hybrid methodology, hybrid practice in a typical organization. So your textbook near end of chapter 1 give you a very good summary, so to speak. I would not say this is an answer of some sort, because there is no answer of exactly what is the role of a business analyst. But it gives you a pretty good picture of what business analyst is doing. And they put business analysts and systems analysts into one category because usually they work together. And business analyst is typically more suitable for a student coming out of business school. Maybe later on when you get to more exposed to technology, you will move into system analyst as well. But we usually start with business analyst. On the other side, another important point is the methodology. And there are a lot of methodology, and we talk about one called the Agile methodology. Even that is not one. It's actually a family of methodology. And every system development methodology has some similarity and difference from one to the other. And this is a framework that your textbook has given to you. And what I would recommend to you is look at this framework. It's a process-oriented framework. And from our one of our assignments that you'll be encounter, I will ask you to study a framework called the Zachman framework. So it will be a good idea to think about the difference between these two frameworks. And Zachman framework we will discuss after you have completed the assignment. But either this one or the other one are a good foundation for you to visualize or for you to put different puzzles together. So when a person comes into the picture, when a problem, when a new technology, what exactly that fit into your overall knowledge framework, this will be a good starting point. So compare this one with Zachman framework, and we will have some more discussion about how each piece of technology, people, hardware, software, and business process all play together in a overall management picture. So that is your chapter number 1. We focus on the career of business analyst, and we look at two important elements of system analysis and design: methodology, including agile, hybrid, and also the modeling, which is not covered directly in chapter 1. So methodology, the role of business analyst, that's your highlight of chapter number 1.